is our Welcome in Schools presentation. The objective of this presentation is to talk about how do schools can pass, or the school districts can pass policies that support the immigrant community, especially in these times. Another objective of this presentation is that we're going to talk about what the rights of immigrants are in different scenarios, because as we know right now, immigrant communities have been under attack for quite a long time. And there's a lot of people here in Norristown and other parts of the state that sometimes like stop their lives whenever we hear about immigration raids happening. So like people get picked up by immigration, which often impacts their day-to-day life. People stop going to school, people stop going to work, people are really afraid. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. I'm really fortunate that I had the chance to work with some of the students that are part of Unidad, which they're gonna introduce themselves in a little bit. We're gonna hear from them, and then I'm also gonna support them in terms of some of the logistics and things that are happening with immigration. My name is Maria Sotomayor, and I am the Deputy Director of the Pennsylvania Immigration and Citizenship Coalition, and we're a statewide immigrant rights organization. So one of my roles as a Deputy Director is also moving forward our education justice work from K to 12 to higher education to ensure that all students, regardless of status and background, have access to education, and then also that their needs are being met within the education system. And then also I run our youth organizing project, which empowers and engages young people, like the ones that you're going to listen from today, to get involved with the movement, learn about advocacy, about what community organizing is, and then also go back to their communities and create a change, connecting with other members. So that's a little bit about some of the work that we do. But enough about me. I'm going to let our students also introduce themselves really quick, and then we're going to go ahead and get started.
Hi guys, good morning. My name is Christiane Eker, and I'm a 12th grader.
Hi, my name is Angel Patel. I'm also a senior.
My name is Brandon, and I'm also a senior.
And my name is Jerke, and I'm a senior also.
Yeah.
So we thought instead of just everybody in the room just listening to a presentation, we actually want to engage you today into the presentation. So we're actually going to start by asking you to stand up and join us in the circle. We're going to do a quick exercise to break the ice a little. So how many of you have ever done a step-in exercise? Okay. Do you want to explain a little bit of it maybe?
It's been a while since that has happened, and if I can recall correctly, there's a question or something that takes place, and if in fact you answer correctly, then you get one step up, and you stay there until you don't answer a question correctly.
Sure. Okay. So
Like
that's one way. Yeah. So the way that we're going to do our stepping exercise today is some of our students have prepared some questions, but also you can feel free to jump in and ask a question. And if that question resonates with you, right, or you feel connected to that question, you're going to step in. We're going to take a little bit of time to just look at each other, and then we're going to step back until the next question comes in. Yep.
All right. So we'll start. We'll go basic level, all the way up, asking what do we like, all that, up to keep going up levels to more personal issues that we have with ourselves. So I'll start off with saying, are you a son or daughter, or do you know anybody who is an immigrant? Can you please say that? Let's start off.
You can join us. You can come into the circle. Go ahead, just join us. Alright, so if anything that people say resonates with you, you're going to step in. Okay? And then you step back when we're done.
So is anyone concerned about the current political situation our nation is having? Okay.
Alright, and Mr. Yam, do you want to continue, or do you want to?
Oh, with questions?
Yeah, with a question, any
Or-
question?
Like, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're also welcome to join.
Anyone or?
I can say one.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever been discriminated because of your color or your race? Well, I mean, your beliefs?
That's exactly what I was gonna ask. Wow, interesting. Has anyone been discriminated against because of their age?
Let's see.
Does anyone feel nervous for people they know that might be deported or are at risk of that?
Would anybody like to get involved with dealing the issues that immigrants face in terms of helping them with attorneys or representing them or helping in any coalition or any agency that helps them with their immigration status or anything like that?
Thank you for joining. Does anybody else have anything else that you want to bring in? Feel free to say something else.
Any fears?
Has anyone, this kind of ties into what you just said, and I have that same question as well, but has anyone been discriminated against within their own minority group, or have you been discriminated against with another minority?
I think this might be a good place to start. So this exercise right here is, we call it step-in exercise. We use it a lot in our organizing spaces to bring people together, especially when sometimes maybe you have 2 or 3 different groups who may not identify with the same issue, but when you start calling things out, sometimes, yeah, people are experiencing things, whether it's personally or through a family, a friend, or somebody in their community. And I think this kind of show where we are today, why maybe we're even in the room today. So I want to say thank you for joining in the circle and also being open to join to this activity. So what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna give out a couple different scenarios, and we're actually, so we're gonna have people break out into small groups. I think we can do 2 and 2 and 2, maybe, yeah. We're gonna break out into scenarios. We're gonna ask you to spend like a minute just reading through it and talking to each other about what the scenario says. And then also thinking about how would you react in case if this happened to you. And then we also want you to decide who's gonna play what role, because we're gonna actually come in the middle and we're gonna play that out for 30 seconds. It's gonna be pretty quick. And then our students are gonna jump in and they're gonna kind of talk about what you just did and let you know about your rights in case of that scenario. So does that sound okay? Okay. First, before we start, I do want to let you know that none of the information that we're providing should be taken as legal advice. So we're not lawyers, but we are providing information that is open to everybody. These are your rights in the U.S., whether you have documentation or not. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the enforcement that has been happening. And so that's what you're going to be seeing play out. So we're gonna start with the first scenario. Okay, so can you see that, or I can make it bigger too? Can people see that okay? Yeah. Do you have the other scenarios with you?
Yeah.
The other papers? Yeah? Okay, so how about, so what we're gonna do is, maybe the two of you can do scenario number 1. Both of you can do scenario number 2. Right here. So just take a minute to read and think about it. And both of you can do scenario number 3. Okay? So we're gonna give you a little bit of time so you can talk about it and then figure out who's gonna play what role when we're ready for our role plays.
Before the 30, I don't know if nothing, you know, but before, if you were to be 15, that wasn't, that you had to be, I think before 16, you had to have entered the country before 16. And the document.
It's terrifying.
Up to 30. If you qualified, a high school dropout had better get their GED.
Where are the meetings? Down there anywhere?
But you had to enter the country before your 16th birthday. There had to be some proof, you had to prove someone in the country. School records did that, that if you applied for school, when you were 14, there's a record. You were in school, you were in the country. But I had one unfortunate.
So I think Marcus screwed it right and she not answer the door.
Was you
Okay, so my question is, okay, so they brought DACA status up to 30 years old.
It can include every children, and this is the whole thing after all. Until they finally figure out what they're trying to do.
So, okay, so say for example, this person came here at maybe the age of 14, 15, registered in school, stayed in school, graduated from school, then went on to college, okay, as a DACA resident.
But somewhere along that process, that person would have
I got
actually
this the
renewed
last day.
2 years at a time.
Okay,
Now, they
so
would be
say,
able to renew it because, especially if they think it's
okay, so say for example,
It
they renewed it
was,
at
about
registry, went on to
So
college,
this
graduated
is,
from college. Now, where does employment come into play? Okay? And then who sponsors that person?
Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Because I'll be happy to help.
We're not working on it because we should work on this right.
We were talking about DACA and the DACA issue. Okay? And then once the person graduates from
kind of about the same issue.
and they have been a DACA resident,
We're kind of
and then what
thinking
happens
about
with employment? What happens with them at that point? Do they have to obtain naturalization papers? And if they don't have naturalization papers, how is it that they can, I mean, like, what's
They
the?
can't work on legal job, they could not work in a teaching job if they don't have.
They have constitutional
I don't have to remember, you have to have a green card. Now, the problem is, they're here for that time, but I'm not sure that once you complete school and everything, you want to have like a.
Yeah,
You do
so
have working
like,
papers.
when you're on DACA, when you're a student that
Once they're
has
in, they just-
DACA, you are able to work legally,
Yes.
how you have your social security and all that. And during college, during the university stage of schooling, they apply for their residency through the DACA program. And then from there, as soon as they get, usually the residency comes as soon as they graduate from college, and they're able, in case they want to do like a teaching job or something like that, they're able, yeah.
Okay,
That's what
wait a minute,
original
can they take the place of a teacher that is already already established in their
It
position.
depends on what the employer decides. If they want to employ the one who recently graduated from college with a residency, or if they don't want to employ them at all. It's
They're not required to employ
They're not,
them.
yeah.
It's about if they offer a job.
Yeah, if they offer a job.
You don't have any right to a
But-
job. You
But
can
wait a
do
minute,
it.
but if the person, if the employer has someone in place that's a legal American citizen,
No, it's not, it's like, it's discrimination, basically. If you're to take away, their employment of an established teacher, to someone who was recently graduated from college with a doctorate thing, then
where do I find that information?
you can find it on the Immigration and Customs website, I know that.
Okay, so can you give me like a little snippet of like the site and like where it actually says that?
I'll look at that.
No, but from logic,
It was really cool.
it's the same as any other employment situation. Nobody who comes out of college
I know, I went.
bumps somebody that teaching have a job. No, let's say,
Even if that teacher didn't have tenure, but they had seniority in the district. They had seniority.
tenure is a two-year thing, and some, you still have seniority, and you can't, unless the person doesn't get tenure, and then they can hire somebody else, whether that person is someone who was born in
So
American
tenure is a
citizen.
2-year versus a 3-year.
It used to be 2 years. But it's the same as any other employment situation, that doesn't change.
It would be like an engineering job, for example, as well. Someone who has seniority at an engineering job, their job isn't going to be taken away from their employer to replace somebody who has recently graduated from college, no matter if they're on DACA or not. You know?
What did you say their job is going to be taken away?
Yeah, from like, for example, how would you say someone who works at an engine, like maybe GE, for example. Someone who is a senior engineer and advisor to projects and all that, their job isn't going to be taken away due to seniority. They've been there long enough for
So you should start talking about
the
who's gonna
company
play
to
what
realize that,
role
oh, they're
our role
for good
plays.
use.
So
Their job
we're
is going to be
gonna
taken away from
start
somebody
about,
who
30
has recently
seconds.
graduated from college, who has
So
no
like,
work experience whatsoever
it's-
in that field. No matter, it doesn't matter if they're on DACA or not. You know what I mean?
So someone that has seniority is not going to be, their job isn't.
They're not going to be relieved by somebody who is on DACA or who has recently graduated from college, who was on DACA.
So
They're not.
what does it take for someone to get their naturalization papers from this point if they're a doctor?
It goes through college. As far as I know, the people that I've talked to who are on DACA and all that, they have told me that they applied after their second year of college, that they start applying, because then they start their concentration classes to reach that field. So then they apply for their residency in order to have citizenship status, or have status in the United States.
So you go from DACA to residency.
Yes, DACA just helps you get into college and helps you with the college process and all that. And then they can start applying on their second year of college. They can
For
start applying for
residency.
residency, yes.
And residency is with a green card.
Yes, no, green card is not, the green card is a work permit. That comes before, DACA is just like a work permit. But it's just a different name for it. DACA helps you with school and legal work.
The green card is residency.
Yeah, a green card is not a residency.
What about-
A green card is a work permit. A work permit allows you to
What
work.
about the people who gain through legal immigration? They get residency. But if they
Yes,
have a
because they
green
apply
card-
for asylum.
But there was like.
That's
No,
how they-
I'm talking about immigrants from around the world. They get a green card.
Yes, that's a work permit. A green card is a work
But it's a
permit.
residency at the same time.
It's not a residency. They're just allowed they're allowed to get their driver's license. They're allowed to have social security number for their taxes and all that.
So like,
They are
I think
allowed-
some-
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
I'm talking
That's
about.
what
That's what I'm
Officers
saying.
actually
I'm
work
talking-
there
Between
with
resident-
these
A residency
like,
establishes your your legal
attorney
status
and
here in the United
our
States.
So you can get that directly through immigration legally. That's
Yes.
what you get from Korea. You get that, but they carry what they call a green card. It's their residency and working. It's a legal immigration.
Alright, we're not gonna stop until everybody says stop it. Alright, so I'm just trying to bring the group back together so we can start with our scenarios. So if people get a chance to figure out who's gonna play what role?
Yes.
Are we going
Yes?
first?
Okay, so we're gonna start with scenario number 1, which is what happens if ICE comes to your home. So I'm actually gonna set up a quick timer for 30 seconds. So this is gonna be like we're playing a movie scene, so everybody can see like the reactions, and then we're gonna pause, right? And then somebody's gonna come in and explain a little bit more about it, okay?
Do you want them to read the scenario first for everyone?
Yeah, we can pull it up actually. I'll pull it up from here. So scenario number 1. Do you wanna read scenario number 1? So we all know what it was? Go ahead and read it.
Okay, scenario number 1. There are 4 family members in this family. Amanda is a mother with no legal status and is an immigrant from Jamaica. Marcus, who is the husband and is a legal permanent resident, also from Jamaica. And there are 2 kids, their 2 daughters, Vicky and Leah, who are U.S. citizens. So it's 5:30 a.m. and the Powell family is fast asleep in their home. Mr. Powell, who's Marcus, is starting to get ready to go to work. All of a sudden, he hears a loud knock on the door. Marcus approaches the window, sees an officer with a vest that says ICE officer. The officer instructs Marcus to open the door. They are looking for someone that lives in this address and want to ask him questions. Marcus does not know what to do and he remains quiet and hidden behind the door so the officers won't see him.
So, you wanna come up and do your role play really quick?
So did the officers see Marcus or not? Okay.
The officers do see Marcus.
Oh, they do see him. All right.
You see me. I don't know if I see you. All right, ready? You're getting ready? ICE officer. Marcus, I just need to talk to someone. Open the door.
Oh,
It's totally fine.
I don't wish to speak to anyone or answer any questions. Thank you.
Open the door.
I don't wish to talk to anyone or answer any questions.
I just need to
Thank
talk to someone. I'm not here to take anyone. Just want to talk. End scene.
Thank you. Good role play. So do you wanna?
It's all right.
Good job.
Yeah, really good scene, guys. Thank you. So we have some complications like that in the middle. So this is what Marcus do. So what do you think he do? You do the thing fine. You just keep. See, you don't want to open the door. You just don't want to talk with nobody. So you do it fine. You stay polite. But the good advice I will ask you, because they will come back again. You should ask them to show you the warrant, and they will throw it under the door, and you make sure it's the official one and signed by a judge. So now you don't let them to hand here to end at home, but now you know they will come back, and now you'll be prepared. You'll be maybe contact your lawyer. I don't know. Maybe you'll be prepared. If they show you the warrant, we sign by a judge, and it's the official one. So thank you guys for the scenario.
Thank you.
So I have what an ICE warrant looks like, so you all know.
All right, you do the other stuff. You don't have to do the other
And they
stuff.
they only have to present it in English. They don't have to put it in other languages.
Basically, yeah, most of the time the warrants are only in English. So when an ICE officer comes to your house, right, I think that you both of you play a really good role play in that, right, where you were saying, you never opened the door, you were just saying, hey, I didn't wish to speak to you. And then what you shared was that you should always, if somebody's at your door and they're asking you to open the door, you should always ask if they have a warrant. right? You should ask questions without opening the door, because the moment you open the door, you're allowing them to come in. And if for some reason, let's say that even if the people that they're looking for do not live in the household, because you open the door, they can start asking questions to anyone. And then sometimes it happens that ICE has taken people who they weren't looking for, but because let's say that you and I are in the room and I happen to be like undocumented, and they ask me the question if I'm a citizen, right? And I said no, I'm not, and they start asking more questions. They sometimes take me, even if they weren't looking for me. So asking for a warrant is really important. Like you say, asking them to put the warrant under the door, or if you don't have a way to put it through the door, even if there's a window nearby where you can look at it. So there are important things about warrants that people don't know sometimes. You should always look out for the address of the house or the place where they're going to is in there. The name of the person, the full name, sometimes date of birth and nationality, like those things should be matching. And then also there's a signature from a judge. So I sometimes will come in with what they call so there's an administrative warrant, which is pretty much a document from Homeland Security, from the ICE office, that has been signed by a ICE director or manager, right? That is not the same thing as a judicial warrant that has been signed by a judge in the district or in the area where they're going to. So those are the biggest difference. And so that's what we want to make sure that community members and also other people know. These are the differences between those warrants. If for some reason they do come with a judicial warrant and you identify that everything's correct and they happen to come for that person that's there, one of the advices that we give people is that if you're going to exit your house, to just say, hey, I'm coming out. If there's a back door, say, okay, I'm coming through my back door, and close the door and lock it. Or same thing if you're coming through the front door, lock it so they don't have access into the house. And then your family or whoever's inside should be documented what that interaction looks like, whether they come in or not. So if anything happened, for example, you're like taking out by force, or they start taking out other people, that there's documentation of how that interaction looked like. So whenever you talk to your lawyer has that information as well. So I think that's like really important for people to know. Do people have any questions? Thank you for sharing. So our scenario number 2 was English. If I stops you while driving, do you wanna read it?
Scenario number 2, if I stops you while driving, Julio is a father with no legal status. He's an immigrant from Bolivia. Marlene, the mother, is also with no legal status. She is also an immigrant from Bolivia. Jose is a son with DACA and is also an immigrant from Bolivia. And Luz is a daughter of both parents, and she is a U.S. citizen. So the Cruz family is leaving Pocono State Park after a fun day with their family. As they are driving in the highway, they hear sirens behind them. The father, who is the driver, pulls the car over on the side of the highway. The police officer approaches the car and asks the driver his name. Julio Mario Cruz, the driver answers. According to the police officer, there is a warrant out for his arrest due to unpaid traffic tickets. The officer asks for his license, but Julio does not have one. The officer then begins to ask Julio questions about his nationality and citizenship. He begins to question the passengers about the immigration status, and then he informs them that the family that he will be contacting us. So you guys can.
We didn't practice.
Okay.
So you wanna
We
come
can
out
do
this?
All right.
Do you want to do this?
Well,
Do you think
I'm
we practiced? It's so good.
We got
What do you think should happen here?
So if you want, I can.
Hello, sir. I see that you were going above the speed limit, and I would like to see your driver's license.
You know how.
You don't have a driver's license. There's a warrant out for your arrest because of unpaid traffic tickets. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
I think yes.
Okay. What nationality are you?
I come from Bolivia,
You come from Bolivia. Are you a citizen of the United States?
United States, no.
You're not a citizen of the United States. So you don't have immigration status
Okay.
at all?
Well,
You don't understand, you know hablas inglés?
I speak some.
Okay.
I speak.
And then he informs, okay, well, I must contact ISIS. ICE, not ISIS. That was a good break.
That's a double whammy.
Bravo, me! I must contact ICE.
You know, I'll lose my head.
I must contact ICE. Drive away.
That's
Does any of you have, you guys are the passengers in the car, okay? So I'm asking you, do you have any immigration status? Are you immigrants?
I'll be the son who has DACA. And then, I have DACA, secretary for police officer.
Do you have a driver's license?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, we are going to have to call someone in to come and take you back home. And at this point, we're going to release you and you will hear from us by ICE. Huh?
I think I'm supposed to be fasting, right?
Yeah. It says that the officer, it's down here, the officer takes Julio in handcuffs and tells the family they are free to go.
Check.
Been there, done that.
All right, so great. All right, so thank you for that.
So,
He was at ISIS.
the first question is that should the officer have asked the passengers questions and asked about their immigration status? And the answer is that they do have the authority to ask questions. They want to know if any of the people in the car have a license in order to drive back home. And it's also important, well, it's not important, but it's also necessary for the police officer to ask about the immigration status. Because if he has an arrest warrant, he can also contact ICE and possibly deport him from the United States. So that answers the first question. What should they do in this situation?
Can I just like?
Yeah, sure.
So let me just say that a little bit. So, when you're driving a car, right, the person that's driving the car is the person that should be asked about, like, do you have a driver's license? And also usually in Pennsylvania and other places, they're gonna ask for a driver's license, your insurance card, and registration. Those should be the only things that people are asked for. If an officer doesn't have to ask about your status or citizenship.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay, no worries. It's a little confusing sometimes. But sometimes because they might hear an accent or look a different way, right? Officers might start asking that question, and the moment that you start answering those questions, you open the door for them to ask about your immigration status. So what people should say is this, one, I choose not to answer that question. Also, figure out how like the officer is interacting with you, right? We always talk about understanding if there's mutual respect or not. Asking nicely, why is this question being asked to me? That has nothing to do with me driving a car right now. And then same thing, like what you said about the officer could ask about if other people have a license, right? Well, if you're the passenger in the car, an officer shouldn't be asking the passengers because they weren't the ones operating the vehicle. If the person in the passenger car happens to have a driver's license at that moment, if a friend is getting arrested, right, you can say, hey, I have a valid driver's license in Pennsylvania and I can take the car if they're not taking you. So that will be the only time, but like you shouldn't answer like as the passenger, like that your status or anything.
I have a question about the son. He has DACA status. Shouldn't he be very close to eligibility for a driver's license? Because isn't it from 6? You came in the country before 15, but don't you get it when you're 16, you can't get it before 16, is that
Yeah,
correct?
so with DACA, at least in Pennsylvania and other states, you can have a driver's license. So yeah, most DACA recipients do have a driver's license, but again, you have to wait till you're 16 years old to get your permit and then your driver's license. Maybe in this scenario, like he wasn't of age yet, but he had DACA,
Yeah.
so he still, he probably didn't have a driver's license then. But DACA recipients are able to get a driver's license in Pennsylvania. You can go ahead.
What do you think will happen to their children? And of course, their children are going to be fine. The police officer was not asking any questions towards them. They're safe. They don't have any problem whatsoever. Obviously, this goes next to the other question: what should they do if nobody in the car has a driver's license? What I personally would, my personal view, I think that they should call any family member who has a driver's license or any friend who has a driver's license to come pick them up at where they are at, or come drive the car back to their house.
And then the other thing, if somebody does end up being taken away, like in this case, the father was taken away because there was a warrant out for his arrest because of unpaid tickets, right? And we can go a little bit more into why we need to pass driver's licenses in Pennsylvania for this reason too, and the fear that people have, even just to make a payment of a ticket, or even going into court to pay the tickets right now. But also, the parents should have asked, can I see the warrant? Right, and then also not answer any questions and say, I have the right to remain silent, and I also have the right for an attorney before signing anything. And for the family that gets left behind, right, while they're waiting for a friend to come pick them up, the first thing that people should do is immediately reach out to an immigration attorney or a nonprofit organization that works with immigrants, so that they can support them through that way as well, or connect to an attorney. Any questions? Yes.
Can you repeat what you said? This is why Pennsylvania, we have to...
I think this is actually a real case that happened. The names have been changed, but this is something that happened. So this person, because he will drive a lot for work, he had to park a big car, I think it was. He was always getting tickets, right? And usually if you're not paying tickets, sometimes you do get warrants. But I think because he was undocumented, he actually got a letter in the mail that said you have to come into court to pay for this ticket, right? And he was so afraid to go to court because he didn't know if he went to court that ICE was going to be waiting for him there or not. So this is why he hadn't gotten to it. And so eventually, they did get pulled over, and the officer ended up arresting him. And the family, the person actually was sent to York Detention Center here in Pennsylvania, and they're currently fighting a deportation case. So Pennsylvania doesn't have access to driver's licenses for undocumented people, and sometimes one of the ways how undocumented people end up getting put in detention and deportation proceedings is because they were driving and maybe they had a broken tail line, or they maybe run a stop sign, something minor. That's for undocumented people can become a huge deal that can even result in family separation and deportation.
How many states allow driver's license for undocumented?
California does.
Yeah, so we have a couple of states nearby. I think right now there's about, I want to say between 15 to 20 different states that have a form of driver's license. There is a campaign in Pennsylvania to pass driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants, especially unmarked driver's licenses, because what we were saying, if sometimes if the person looks like they're foreign, right, whatever that looks like to people, they could start asking questions about nationality and citizenship, and if somebody has a driver's license that says something like undocumented or looks different than Pennsylvania, they could even use that as an excuse to ask questions about nationality and status. So there's more information on our website about how to get involved with the driver's licenses if people are interested.
So are police officers not allowed to ask about documentation?
Yeah, they shouldn't be asking that. So police officers are supposed to enact state law, not federal law. And the moment that you start asking about immigration questions and even like calling immigration in, right, that's, you're acting as if you were a federal immigration officer. So that's, I think, like the easiest response that I can give. There are some municipalities in Pennsylvania that may have like close relationships with ICE, where like even in some places in PA, like the department of the police department may even have like an ICE officer in the same place. So sometimes when they bring people in, they'll like look at their fingerprints and see that this person doesn't have documentation, and then like put them on hold, which is like what we have been fighting about in Philadelphia, right? We hear that Philadelphia is a sanctuary city, right? What that means is that we're asking for the city and like the department not to have like a close relationship with immigration. So if I get brought in because I had a broken taillight and the officer started asking about my status, and I said, yes, I don't have documentation, that's why I don't have a driver's license. They could have brought me in and then called immigration, right? And immigration could say, hold this person in for 48 hours until we check their case, and then most of the time they'll come and get me, right? So that's why, like we're saying, like it's really important to advocate to think about like advocating for driver's licenses and other things to be able to support immigrant communities.
We were in a serious conversation regarding the different procedures from moving from a DACA status to legal status, citizenship here in the United States. So if someone comes here before the age of 16, they have the legal right as a DACA to go through school and so forth up until the age of 30. Is that what I was understanding?
No, so DACA is open to a very small number of people. So you have, in order to qualify for DACA, you had to be in the U.S. before June 15 of 2007. You had to have lived in the United States continuously. You had to be here on June 15 of 2012, which is when President Obama at the time announced DACA. And you had to be like between 50, under 30 years old on that date to be able to qualify. So immigration, when they set up requirements, they follow every single requirement to the date, right? So I have friends that met all the requirements, but maybe they came in June 17, right, a few days after, and still did not qualify for DACA. But what DACA does is it provides a temporary relief from deportation for 2 years, and also a work authorization so people can work. One of the benefits of DACA is that you can have a driver's license, people can open bank accounts because now they have a social security number for work purposes, but it doesn't give a direct pathway to citizenship. That's the other thing. So every case is different for people. So people should always consult an immigration attorney just to see like if there's anything that they can do to adjust their status. But just because you have DACA, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to adjust your status immediately or ever until we change immigration laws. And then the other thing is, last year Trump made a big change to the DACA program where he resigned the program. And so right now, the only people that can keep renewing their DACA are people who had DACA before that decision was made. So and also you have to be 15 years old, because that's like for working age purposes. So if I just turned 15 and I meet all the requirements that were set before in 2012, but I never applied for DACA before, right now I cannot apply for that permit. But if when Trump made the decision to resign it, I had DACA, and I was like getting ready to renew my DACA, I can still renew it until something changes with the program.
So how does one move from DACA, let's see, we
legal
discussed
Professional
DACA.
employment, if you finish college.
Right, so yeah, like I said, it depends on your own immigration's history. So that's why we ask people to talk to a lawyer. Sometimes, like not even marriage can be a reason how you adjust status, because it depends how people enter the United States, right? But there are sometimes DACA recipients who maybe had entered with a visa and they never left, so they overstayed their visa. and then maybe they marry a U.S. citizen, that sometimes it might be a way for them to adjust their status because they're married to a U.S. citizen and they had being allowed to go into the country. But then there's people who marry a U.S. citizen. I'm just using that as one of the examples. But like they didn't come with any inspection when they cross a border of entry, so they're gonna have to go back to their home country and apply from back there before they can come back and be reunited with their loved one, and that can take months or it could take years. So it's not that easy. Yeah, I don't know. It maybe like once, because students, because they have DACA, sometimes they can get better jobs, they can like save more money, and then end up going to school. Maybe they end up getting a pretty good job where the company might have the money to sponsor them, but it can be very costly.
But a company has to sponsor them if they do not have legal status, correct?
Well, a company they have to see, again, it goes back to the person's own immigration history. So I don't know how many companies have sponsored DACA recipients for work permits and then also to adjust their status. But that might be a possibility for some people, but not everybody, because it's very expensive to sponsor somebody even for work purposes. Yes.
If a student doesn't have DACA or they don't have any papers, what motivations are there, if any, to stay in school and finish?
Yeah, so for that, yeah, it depends, right? Like sometimes students have really good support system at home and then also in school, right? Like I've been to so many different schools across the state where counselors and teachers were like, I really want to help my students and I want to keep them in school. And so like people have like resources available, they'll print out our material and like have it displayed so students can see it, have assemblies or have conversations around this with their students so people know like, you can come to me and talk to me, I'll help you. Also letting students know that college is possible for them if that's what they want to do after they graduate high school, but they have to graduate in order to be able to go to college or get their GED if they dropped out, because that happens a lot. So yeah, sometimes like really having that support system, that's really helpful.
So for someone to get to the naturalization papers, what did they have to do in order to get to the naturalization papers?
So just really quick, because I want to make sure that we cover the other parts. In order to become a citizen, you do have to like adjust your status and then you have to become a legal permanent resident. And so if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you could apply for citizenship within 3 years. But if a family member had requested you, right, a family petition or even a work petition, it will take about after 5 years of being a legal permanent resident, where you could apply for your citizenship after 5 years. So that's the difference.
So naturalization papers are your legal citizen?
That will be your citizenship, yeah. When you become a naturalized citizen, now you have a U.S. citizenship.
Okay, but
Residency.
That's after being-
Residency.
But if they went from
Legal
DACA, they went through college, they came out and was employed.
Yeah.
So the employer had to have sponsored them.
So just to make it clear, right, DACA does not provide a pathway to citizenship. What DACA provides is a temporary protection from deportation and also a work authorization, right?
Yes.
So that's one thing. It's temporary, it will end at any time. If people end up finding a way to adjust their immigration status, right, whether it's through marriage or maybe a parent was already in the process and can apply for them through a family petition, that might be a way for some DACA recipients to get to legal permanent resident citizenship. For other students, maybe there's no way for them to adjust their status even though they have DACA. And so, like, I think what you were getting to is like, if you have DACA, you can work legally, right? So you're probably working in different places, but it doesn't always mean that your job is gonna say, hey, I want to sponsor you to stay here. So again, it's very.
But in order for a person to receive their residency not residency, or permanent status, perhaps the work had to sponsor them.
That could have been one case, but it doesn't happen all the time. Yeah. Yeah. I do want to move on to the next one because we are running out of time and I want to make sure that we get through this scenario. So I'm going to pull this up.
But obviously, something has to change eventually.
And we can talk later too.
So the scenario is you are an undocumented student, which means that you don't have legal status and are at risk of deportation. And you often worry about your situation, but unfortunately there isn't any way for you or your family to adjust your status based on the current immigration laws. You try to live a normal life, but sometimes certain scenarios can create anxiety for you, even when you are not under any threat. So it's fifth period and the principal makes an announcement. You're doing a locker search, the school is in lockdown. Suddenly you hear police officer radios and canine dogs moving around the halls at school. They're searching for weapons and drugs. As soon as you hear police, you start to panic, thinking this is also an immigration raid inside of your school. You begin to panic, but try not to show your anxiety to your peers. You want to run or tell a family member you feel scared.
So you want to do the role play? So this is, again, like a scenario about like your rights in school.
We are doing a lockdown search. The school is in lockdown. Do you hear that? Hear the police officers up there? Yeah, me too. Look a little nervous, you guys.
No, not really.
Something wrong.
Wait,
Yeah, don't come back.
that's all.
Thank you. I think that paints a really clear scenario, some of the anxiety that students may face.
Basically, ICE can't really come to in our schools unless they have a judicial warrant, which Maria talked about earlier. Has to be signed by a judge and not by like an administrator of ICE. And what should you do? Stay calm. Don't like tell anybody that you think would tell somebody from ICE that like you're an immigrant that's undocumented, because like you never know who's gonna tell anyone. Can ICE come into your school? Like I said, they need a judicial warrant, and schools are secure zones, which like is based off of a Supreme Court case. So schools are protected, and ICE can't come in unless the judicial warrant, and you're not allowed to be kept from your education. And if you come after, like when you're being, I don't know, when you like register for school, they're not allowed to ask for social security or anything. They just have to be shown documentation to know your age so they know which grade to put you in. What else? When you're in school, you're basically protected by your right to, I don't know what else to say.
I can jump in. So, yeah, like you just mentioned, there are different rights that immigrant students have in the schools, even undocumented people. So FERPA, the Family Protection Act, right, it allows your information to be protected. So if an ICE officer was to call tomorrow your school, or even come into the school and say, hey, I want to speak to this student, I need this person's information, right, what the school should do immediately is say, I apologize, I'm sorry, but I cannot give you that information, and hang up the phone, which you'll probably know that as educators. The other thing is, ICE has a memo too that says that schools are sensitive locations, which means that they aren't gonna go into a school or even a church or hospitals, because by going in to pick somebody up, it can cause a lot of chaos around everybody else. The other thing, you were talking about Plyer versus Doe, which is a Supreme Court case that said that students, regardless of immigration status, race, religion, sexuality, etc., shouldn't be denied access to school because of this reason, right, from K to 12. So those are other things that immigrant families need to know. We have, I don't know if you, can I just see this really quick? So this is like PIC's Welcome in Schools campaign. Here is more information about the rights that immigrant students have in their schools. There's a lot of information about the rights, but then there's also action steps that people can take. And then just one more thing about like ICE, like you said, like ICE cannot physically come into school and like either like push themselves to get in and say, I'm looking for this person, right? Schools should also have a protocol on what happens if a officer is trying to come in to talk to a student, right? So one, like your parents should be notified because this person most likely is a minor. And then the other thing is the school district should pass or should have policies in place around that, right? The best thing to do, the best scenario should be that if an ICE officer or is contacting a school, they shouldn't be contacting the school directly. They need to talk to or be sent to talk to either the lawyers of the school district or the superintendent of the school district to be able to identify what's happening and notify the parents and the student about their request, and then give the family time to be able to figure out or provide approval to have their information shared. That's what they want. There is information, so we had talked as a group. There's something called Welcome in Schools resolutions or policies, where students in different parts of Pennsylvania are actually talking to their school boards about passing this type of resolutions that pretty much said, like, my school district is not going to be collaborating with ICE officers. They're not going to be sharing my personal information or my parents. They are going to be training all staff members around my rights, and that they're gonna even be working together with the community. And if something happens where like a student gets picked up on their way to school, or an ICE officer happens to even stop a student and question them, right, that the school district immediately reacts to it and says, you're violating our own policies. We're trying to do as much as we can to stop that from happening, right? Because like I said, ICE isn't going into schools right now, but they're having instances in the past where ICE has picked up children from like on their way to school, like in North Carolina. This is why we started doing research on this, because in North Carolina back in 2016, when there were a lot of immigration raids, there were about 6 kids that were picked up on their way to school or on the bus stop. So this is where like school districts have a way to support these families, is by saying like, we will not allow any of our children on any, whether it's like a school building or grounds or even bus stops, to be picked up. And if that happens, that we will come out and support them as much as we can. So that's the information that's in this toolkit. That one of the action steps that you can do is you can go and speak to your school board members and talk to them about that. Talk to the superintendent, talk to even your principal about what are you currently doing right now to support the families in your schools. Anything else that I missed from that? Okay. And I think we have a couple, maybe like a minute, really
Yes.
quick.
Yeah, we have like a minute left.
Yeah. Do you want to just really quick maybe talk about, as a bystander or like an ally, what you can do to support immigrant communities?
Sure. So, here's a scenario. Leave that there. Basically, if you see someone possibly like, for instance, say you see ICE officers come to one of your neighbor's doors and they're asking for someone, and say your neighbor opens the door and they're talking with the officer and they say, well, this person that you're looking for doesn't live here and I'm not this person, and they try and get them to leave, but instead the officer starts to ask your neighbor all these questions, and your neighbor could possibly be an undocumented immigrant, and then they start asking them all these questions, and then they say that they're going to arrest them even though they were not originally looking for that person. Something you could do if you see this actually happening is you could ask the officers why they're taking them away. Like, you could ask questions to the officers. You could, take out our trusty cell phones. You could record the incident that's actually going on. Because if the officers, if they have a warrant for one person and they can't necessarily, they could take that person, your neighbor, away, but he doesn't have to answer any of their questions. So your neighbor never had to open the door for the officers if the person wasn't actually there, and they didn't know if they had a warrant. They didn't have to answer any of their questions. They could plead the fifth. And you could say all these things to the ICE officers possibly, or you could just record the incident for later evidence of violation of law or something along those lines, and really try and help out your fellow neighbors in your community. And yeah, that's pretty much all that.
So yeah, that's that, so you know, like, even though you're not an immigrant yourself, even though like this may not be directly connected to you or mission to you, there are ways that you can also support like your communities. There are organizations also that have done, I think they call it either stand buyers or allied workshops where they teach people how to react. But yeah, what you said right now about like even using your cell phone, that's something that we use all the time. And there have been, I don't know if you've ever seen videos of people, like there was a woman that was on the Greyhound bus or one of those companies where ICE officer came in and started asking everybody about their immigration status, and she used her rights because you don't have to unless like there's a specific reason why they're asking. And so she said, I have the right not to answer that. Nobody should answer that either. And started recording and just making so much noise that the officer left, right? So that's like one of the ways that you can support St. Allies. The other thing is contact the local immigrant or rights organization so you can let them know that you just witnessed a raid or there's currently a raid happening. So sometimes communities have like emergency raid groups that will come out and like stand there to support the families or follow up with families afterwards. So that's something else that you should know. Just one more thing before you go. I do want to provide these resources. So there are a few organizations here in Norristown that support the local immigrant community. You can feel free to take a picture. I can leave this up too for a while. Another thing that you can do is if people have questions about just like their legal status and how to adjust it to, like you should definitely get a consultation with a trusted immigration lawyer or start with a local non-profit organization that has lawyers on site so they can go over people's cases because every immigration case is different, right? And so there's a list. Most of the legal services are in Philadelphia, so I just do want to let you know that. And then also, you can see Nabel talk about it really quick. PIC is currently doing a survey of schools in Pennsylvania to find out like what do immigrant and refugee students and parents need from schools, or what schools are doing that makes them feel more welcome, or maybe what they're not, what is missing from schools, so we can like put together a lot more information to be able to bring to educators and parents and some of the advocacy that's happening around education. And then PIC, another way that people can get involved, even from young people and also for all of you as educators, you can become a member of PIC. PIC just began a youth membership, which is a 1-year membership renewable. For youth, there's 2 different tiers. One is $10 for ages 13 to 17 for middle to high school age, and then the second tier is for 18 to 25, and that's $15. And there's a lot of benefits that come along with it. Like discounts for events and transportation to events too. But I think the most important things about being a member is that youth are part of a statewide group, right? Where they're talking about organizing and what's going on. Also, they get decision-making power on what campaigns and what the organization should be involved in. Also, the youth can either appoint 1 or 2 people to serve on the board of our organization. The first year will be as a non-voting member, so those youth can learn what it means to be on a board and have a mentorship through one of our board members. And the next year they can apply to run for a board to be a board member. And then also they get to represent like the youth membership during our membership meetings to decide what campaigns we should be working on. So that's something that I want to let you know. You have our information. The yellow piece of paper has my contact information. If people have any questions, definitely follow up. I'll put my information up too so you have it and you can take a picture of that. I do want to say thank you to our students for getting all this information out to you because